The Blackwood Manor stood gaunt against the perpetually overcast sky, a jagged silhouette of decaying grandeur against a canvas of impending doom. Elias Thorne, a debunker of myths and a self-proclaimed rationalist, scoffed at the locals' whispered warnings as his carriage rattled through the overgrown, weed-choked drive. He'd come to Blackwood to disprove the legend of the Crimson Chamber, a room said to drive men mad with terror, a place where shadows danced with malevolent intent. The manor was in a state of advanced decay. Cobwebs draped like macabre tapestries, dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight that pierced the boarded-up windows, and a chilling draft sneaked through the crumbling halls. Silas, the aged, skeletal caretaker with eyes that held 1,000 untold stories, greeted Elias with a hesitant bow. "The chamber waits, sir. Many have sought to understand its secrets, but none have returned unchanged." His voice was a dry rasp, like leaves skittering across a forgotten tongue. Elias, armed with his oil lamp and a notebook filled with scientific observations, dismissed Silas's foreboding words. He followed the caretaker through the labyrinthine corridors, each turn revealing further evidence of the manor's grim history. Portraits of stern-faced Blackwood ancestors stared down, their eyes seeming to follow Elias's every move. Finally, they reached the Crimson Chamber. The door, crafted from dark, polished oak, was scarred and warped, as if something desperate had tried to claw its way out. Silas, visibly trembling, produced a heavy iron key. "Beware, sir. Light is your only shield." He unlocked the door with a shuddering click and retreated into the shadows, leaving Elias to face the darkness alone. Elias pushed the door open. The room was plunged in an oppressive gloom, the only light emanating from his flickering lamp. The air hung heavy and stagnant, thick with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic, like old blood. The walls were covered in crimson wallpaper, peeling and faded, adorned with grotesque patterns that seemed to radiate in the dim light. A large, ornate mirror dominated one wall, its surface clouded with age and grime, reflecting not Elias's image, but something else, of fleeting glimpses of tormented faces, whispers of forgotten identities. He methodically began his investigation. He tested the air for noxious gases, measured the temperature, and documented the room's architecture. Initially, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, save for the palpable sense of dread that permeated the atmosphere. But as time wore on, the flickering lamp cast dancing shadows that played tricks on his eyes. He began to hear whispers, barely audible, murmuring his name. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into anguished cries and desperate pleas. The crimson wallpaper seemed to ripple and shift, the grotesque patterns morphing into horrifying visages. Elias felt a chilling presence, a malevolent entity that was feeding on his fear. He tried to maintain his composure, to cling to his rationality, but the room was slowly eroding his sanity. The mirror reflected his growing terror, his eyes widening with disbelief as the ghostly faces became more vivid, more real. He saw the faces of the manor's victims, trapped within the Crimson Chamber, their souls forever bound to its haunted walls. Suddenly, the lamp flickered and died, plunging Elias into complete darkness. The whispers intensified, swirling around him like a vortex of despair. He felt cold, skeletal hands reaching out, grasping at him, pulling him into the abyss. He screamed, a primal sound of pure terror, but his voice was swallowed by the darkness. When Silas cautiously re-entered the Crimson Chamber, he found Elias huddled in a corner, gibbering incoherently. His eyes were vacant, his mind shattered. The notebook lay open on the floor, filled with scribbled nonsensical words and grotesque drawings. The Crimson Chamber had claimed another victim. Silas shook his head sadly, closed the door, and locked it tight, condemning the manor and its secrets to an eternity of silence and shadows. Blackwood Manor stood tall in the storm, a grim monument to the power of the unknown and the fragility of the human mind, forever haunted by the tormented souls trapped within its crimson chamber. The legend lived on, a testament to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of reality.